Well, I'm Valerie Tarlow. I go to St Peter de Merton in Bedford, and I was a single parent. My children are grown up now, so I live on my own, and I don't have a dog, cat or a fish to look after. So I was suddenly a bit more free to think about, to start hearing and discerning what God might have next for me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And do you remember the first time you met a lay reader and what you made of her?
I do. It was a very exuberant lady, and I think she's since gone on to ordination.
Okay.
And she was full of, joy. Now, I've since found that not all readers are like that. And the wonderful thing about being a reader, I think, is that you do realise that God calls all kinds of people. There's no such thing as a typical reader. And that means that there's room for any of us and all of us.
Okay.
Which is a very comforting thought.
It is comforting.
For those of us who don't like to think that we're in a certain mould.
Oh, what's the mould that you're worried about?
Well, the mould I was desperately worried about, because I put it off for a number of years, was I didn't want to be seen as a rather stodgy person wearing the choir dress and the scarf and being all very theological and holy, and I didn't want to be seen as separate and not a lay person anymore.
Right.
And being funny and having a sense of humour is very important. I didn't want to become a very serious person wearing a uniform. And I found since that actually you don't have to become, because God allows you to stay the person you are.
Absolutely.
Which is a wonderful gift.
What made you want to become a reader?
I didn't want to become a reader. Somebody suggested it to me about 5 or 6 years ago, and I put it off. I thought, no, my first instance, I hadn't met the joyful lady then. My first reaction was, I don't want to do anything serious like that. It will tie me into the church structure. And that was a huge worry for me. I'm a bit of a rebel, and I don't like conforming, and it was a huge struggle. It's almost as if God in the end had to get hold of me and keep tugging me, and in the end it was almost as if I had no choice, in the best possible way, of course.
Sure, okay. What would you say you've gained from these 3 years of training? Because you are going to be licensed this summer, aren't you?
Yes, very soon. Well, strangely enough, you would think that the theology and all the reading and knowledge about liturgy and worship and everything else would be the best thing. But for me, that hasn't been. In fact, that's some of it's been a bit of a slog, although I love reading. But when you're reading for a purpose, it's very different. But for me, the best thing has been the formation, the fact that you hardly notice it's happening, but very gradually you start to be formed. Some of it's a bit uncomfortable and a bit painful, and you start to be formed into the sort of person that you think God may be able to use. And I'm not sure that formation would have happened without this 3 years of reader training.
Okay. And in what ways would you say your training is making a difference to you now in terms of your understanding of the church and your role within it?
I have a much bigger understanding of why my Anglican identity is so important to my faith, how linked the two are. For me, they're not particularly separate things, which may sound as if I'm saying that Anglicanism is the only way, and I don't think that. I actually came from a free church, and that's wonderful too, and has lots of strengths. But my understanding now, as an Anglican, is that the liturgy of the Anglican Church has very much been part of forming my faith, and my faith informs my participating in liturgy. And so that the whole thing of a piece has become much more precious and meaningful to me.
Okay, so because liturgy in that sense was quite new to you, based on your background.
Well, I did know about the Church of England because I was confirmed in the Church of England at 14, but then all through my 20s, 30s and 40s I went to a free church. So I'm a returner back to Anglicanism. And that doesn't mean I've left the free church because there's anything wrong with it, but simply because I think it's important to find where you need to be, the place where you can grow,
Sure.
where you can get to know more about God, which is theology, but also know God more, which is relationship.
So, Val, what are you looking forward to doing when you're licensed?
Well, now if you'd asked me that a year ago, I would have said, I don't know if I want to do anything. I was still very afraid of doing anything. But now that I've been out on a placement to another church, I'm just looking forward to bringing more of God to people. It sounds a very big thing to be doing, and it's not of me or of any one person that we do it, simply that I'm looking forward to, I hope, being a channel, a conduit of God's love, whereby you can say to people, look, this is more of what God may look like, God's mercy and love and grace, and all of those things that I've experienced myself. Not all the time, of course, because that would be unrealistic. There are also some difficult times for anyone in life, and that's always going to be the case.
Okay, thank you very much.